Maple provides a rich environment for education, helping teachers present and students understand a wide variety of topics, including probability and statistics. There are many new features in Maple 2015 that directly benefit the statistics classroom. This includes new features such as a new random variables palette, which allows us to simply go over here and choose from a list of distributions, insert this into your Maple document in order to create new random variables based on these select distributions. So here, for example, we can create a new random variable based on the normal distribution. And once we have this, we can now simply start right-clicking and using clickable statistics routines in order to do things like generate a sample of a given size. Also, in order to do things like compute the PDF, and we'll just do this at value x in order to see how this looks. In addition, we can also compute some fundamental descriptive statistics. So here you see we have the ability to find the decile, the mean, the median mode, percentile, quantile, and much more. Now, thanks to Maple's natural math notation, you'll notice that students are actually going to be working with standard symbolic representations. And this makes it much easier for them to harmonize what they see on their screens with what they read in their textbooks. So here, for example, you can see the PDF for the normal distribution. And since we're working with this as a symbolic representation, this also makes it a lot easier to do things like to generate plots. So if we simply right-click here, we can choose a 2D plot. And here's a 2D plot of our probability distribution. In general, Maple's clickable statistics tools are designed to support interactive learning. And what we really mean by this is that we want students to spend less time looking through documentation to try to find a relevant command, and more time just learning the concept. So you could just spend more time right-clicking in order to find the command or the operation that you want to use, rather than needing to go searching through documentation in order to try to determine how to sample or to find a CDF or PDF or so on. There are also two new reference tutors for statistics in Maple. And these two new tutors make it possible to quickly generate standard statistical tables for given distributions. So we can find these if we go up to Tools, Tutors, Statistics. And to start, let's look at some probability distribution tables. And by default, we get the normal distribution table, and you'll notice this is just using the typical values you see for a normal distribution table. So from 0 to down here at 3.9. But the nice part about doing this in Maple is that, of course, as opposed to just looking this up in the back of your textbook, is that we can increase the number of digits. We can take this up to 8 digits. And we can look for non-typical values. So we can move this table up to 4.9, and we'll start at 3.1. Just update the table, and now we can see a new range of values in this table. There's also another new reference tutor. This one is for generating critical value tables. So here, for example, by default, we have the student T critical value table. And you'll see here we can update our parameter values from 1 to 30 for the first parameter of the student T distribution. As well on the side here, you'll notice that we have different confidence levels. So here in the first column, we would have 0.95, and we'd have 0.975, 0.99, and 0.995. We can also go up to the top here. We can choose to show these tables for various other distributions. So here, for example, is the chi-square critical value table and all of its values. Interactive applications are actually the key for reinforcing core concepts within statistics. And Maple 2015 also includes 18 new statistics and probability math apps, which make a great complement to any classroom lesson. So I want to now walk through and I want to show you a couple of these new applications. So as you can see here is a collection of these. And let's start. We'll have a look at the Rolling 2 Dice math app. We'll just open this up in a new tab. All right, so the structure of a math app is such that we start off with an explanation of the main concept we're trying to convey. So in this case, we're going to talk a little bit about probabilities. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the probabilities of outcomes of rolling 2 die. So we'll scroll through this, and at the bottom, every math app is structured such that it also has an interactive section. So with this interactive section, we can now see the probability that, say, the two dies, they sum to 7. And we'll see that this corresponds to these values in this table below, as well as the probability of 1/6. We can also modify this. We can say that either die is even, and now we can see that's going to occur with probability of 3/4. So this again gives you kind of an interactive interface to the concept we're trying to explain. Let's go back and look at another one. In this case, let's look at the Z-Scores math app. So again, we start off with the main concept. We're talking about the standard normal distribution table, as well we're talking about standardized scores here. So I won't cover that right now, but at the bottom again we have an interactive demonstration where we can adjust the value for Z here to basically see how this corresponds on these two plots of the probability density function as well as the cumulative distribution function. This makes it easy also to read off things like the p-value, so we can see as we're changing this that this area here corresponds to the value that we're just simply reading off this cumulative distribution function curve. And staying within the topic of working with Z-scores and Z-tests, in fact, let's show another example. In this case, this is a gradable math app, and in this case we have a gradable example where we've written a new example that talks about a company producing metal discs, and we give the mean weight, the standard deviation. But what's neat about these examples is it's possible to regenerate these questions. So if the students are looking to have a good way of practicing, of basically walking through the computations, they can regenerate these questions. And then we have a follow-up question down here, assuming a significance level of 95%, is the company correct in accepting the null hypothesis that the sample does not have different weights on average than the population of metal discs? The students can then accept or reject this and check their answer. See, in this case, we should have rejected. So this is scored incorrectly. We are incorrect. And then we can read off the p-value. So as I mentioned before, there are 18 new math apps geared towards statistics and probability education in Maple 18. And as well, there's a lot of other new complementary features within other packages, such as statistics and so on. So if you'd like to learn more about statistics in Maple, I would definitely recommend going to the Statistics Education homepage on maplesoft.com.